his own right. I'm the screenwriter of Wild, Nick Hornby, the producer and star of Wild, Reese Witherspoon, the inspirational walking woman herself, Cheryl Strayed, and producer of Wild, Bruna Papandre. I should mention that unfortunately director Jean-Marc Vallée can't be with us today because of production commitments. He's a busy boy, but we'll touch on him later. Welcome to the London Film Festival and congratulations on a wonderful film. I'm going to start, ladies first, you're overwhelmed here, Nick. I must start with you, Reese, because I think that a lot of people like me found things that were intensely personal and really struck a chord in Cheryl's book. And I understand that you leapt into action to option it as soon as you read it. And I wonder if you could tell us what in particular struck a chord with you.
Oh, well, so much. I mean, it's so interesting as people are seeing the film that they all take something different from it. So for me, I suppose just the idea of this woman being on a journey to find herself doing it completely alone. I think that was the part I kept thinking about even when we were shooting it, is that could I do this? Well, yeah, I could probably hike. I could probably do this, but could I do it all alone for 94 days without anyone? And that was what I found really remarkable.
Thank you. Bruna, when you and Reese founded Pacific Standard Films, and by the way, launching it with getting the adaptation of Gone Girl off the ground, so well done, ladies. Did you have a remit for the kind of films you wanted to see get made?
Yes, we definitely did. Movies with men in them? No, only men. There's not enough roles for men. No, we did. We definitely had a remit. We both shared the kind of common goal of developing not just roles for women, but strong, complicated roles for women. And what better piece of material to start with than Wild. So that was the first thing that Reese sent me, and that's how we started Pacific Standard, Gone Girl being the second piece. So yeah, that was our remit.
Cheryl, one of the things that's very striking in your book is how brave and honest you are, opening up painful and self-destructive experiences. But was it a different kind of scary to contemplate how that could turn out in a film?
A very different kind of scary. You know, for years I've been working that muscle as a writer, revealing. Writing is about revelation. It's about opening. It's about telling the truth. And I've taken a lot of risks and done a lot of scary things as a writer, but I'm in control of it. Those are my words. I decide what stays in and what comes out. And when I said yes to Reese and Bruna, and then I said yes to Nick, and then I said yes to Jean-Marc, and I had to trust all of these people and more to both tell my story, honor my story, be true to it while also making it their own. And so, yeah, I was a bit terrified. And it didn't really hit me until right before I saw the film for the first time last spring. And I think I was nervous in a way that I have never been before. When I sat down to watch, I was sitting with Bruna and Reese and Jean-Marc and my husband, and I just thought, I mean, here I had to let go. I had to release the truth of my story into other artists' hands. And so, yeah, it was terrifying. And it turned out really well. I'm so proud of the film and the work that these people did.
Thank you. Nick, you shot to fame and a national treasurehood by getting into the minds of modern men. But as a screenwriter, you seem to be doing a pretty good job getting into women's heads. For those who have not read the book and don't know the story, who might have the impression that this is a chick flick, what would you say to that?
Well, you know, it's about grief and heroin addiction and promiscuity and being really, really tough, both physically and mentally. So it's not really like any chick flick I've ever seen. And, you know, it's one woman who happens to be a woman. So I guess it's a chick flick like the Robert Redford film All Is Lost was a chick flick.
Just briefly before we go on, I'd like you, anyone who has anything to tell us what Jean-Marc Vallée brought to the table. Why him?
Well, we saw, I didn't know if Bruna wanted to say, but we saw Dallas Buyers right before it came out, and we were immediately just awestruck by that film, and we thought, God, could we possibly be able to get him to direct our movie? The way he handles sexuality in that movie, the way that he tackled tough subject matter without making it saccharine or maudlin, I think he was just incredible. And he read the script right away and called us immediately and said he actually put another movie to the side that he's making right now. He said, I have to make this film right now. I want to start immediately. So we were really fortunate.
Okay, great. Over to you folks. Who'd like to ask a question? Yes, sir, right here. And then could we get a microphone to this gentleman for a second?
Well, like Cheryl and I were talking about it last night about, the boxes that people put people in. I think, I had that experience. I certainly learned from that experience. I felt terrible about that experience. But I think it was also a moment where I think people sort of realized I wasn't exactly what they thought I was, maybe. I mean, I guess maybe we all like to sort of define people by the ways that the media presents them and that sort of thing. And I think if it shows I have a complexity that people didn't know about, I think that's part of human nature. I made a mistake. We all make mistakes. The best you can do is say sorry and learn from it and move on. Well, Jean-Marc wanted me on the day. He purposely made it so that I didn't know, because Cheryl started her hike and she had never backpacked ever. He wanted me to have no experience with any of the props. So when you see me putting together the tent, that's me literally putting together a tent. He filmed me for 2 hours. No one was helping me. So when I'm shaking it and going, Jesus fucking Christ, I literally could not figure out the fucking tent. And when I kicked the stove, it's because I couldn't make the fucking stove work.
There were no fucks in the script. She just
yeah. So the backpack, being an actor for so many years, I was like, they're going to stuff it full of newspaper. It's no big deal. I'm just going to carry it around. And we got there on the day, and I put on the thing, and I said to the prop, I just put the newspaper in it. And Jean-Marc came over and he said, is there anything in the backpack? And I said, no, I'm not gonna like hike across the thing with the heavy backpack. And he's like, actually, I think it would be better if you had the heavy on your shoulders, and I see the way you walk. And I was like, are you joking me? And he said, no, I think it's better. And then he just walked off. I was like, oh my God. So I ended up carrying it the whole time, and I've never been as strong as I was after that movie. I had some back problems.
Ask about the delightful hobo time scene. That was really, really nice to watch and stuff. I just wanted to ask Cheryl and Nick Hornby, did that actually come from a real experience that actually happened on the trip? How was it writing that and performing a scene as daft as that?
It's absolutely real and true. Just about everyone in the book has come out of the woodwork and found me again. I looked for people when I was writing the book, but those I couldn't. They've come out. But the one person I haven't found is Jimmy Carter of the Hobo Times.
You're out there.
I researched. You must remember this was
He's
1995.
the editor of Vogue.
This was 1995, before the internet and such. So but when I was writing the book, I went and searched for the Hobo Times online, couldn't find them, and the hobos aren't very good at archiving, materials and such. But I never have found him. But it was one of those experiences that I always want to stand up in the film and say, this really actually happened just as you see, because it seems so bizarre. And those details of what was in the hobo care package. I wrote them down in my journal, as I was drinking that beer, and it really did happen that way. So I loved it, that it made it into the script in the film as well. Oh, absolutely. So the film had actually started production And Bruna and Jean-Marc had met my daughter Bobby and said she looks like Reese, young Reese, and would she like to play the role? And so I talked to her about it.
Would she like to audition?
Would she like to audition?
Uh-huh.
And that was, they were like, we're not going to just hand this to her. So I talked to her, and I said, you'll have to be in some unhappy scenes. She knows that I didn't have a good father, and you'll be in some happy scenes with the woman who plays your mother. And she just said no right away. So we just left it. But some time went by. They couldn't find a young Cheryl, and she overheard me talking to my husband about it. And she just said from the backseat of the car, I want to audition. So then we tried to talk her out of it because we wanted her to really want this. And we went for the audition, and she sent me and my husband out of the room. She was alone with Jean-Marc and the casting director, and she auditioned and got the role. And she was such a hard worker and so fantastic. I've never been more proud of her. And of course, it was really emotional for me to watch my daughter be, present with this man playing my father, who's saying terrible things, who's doing terrible things to her and her mother and her brother. And then on the contrary, to have her dancing with Laura and leaping into Laura's arms. It was like watching my life flash before me. And, if writing heals some wounds, in so many ways witnessing the making of this movie healed those too, and never more powerfully than when I was watching my daughter live my childhood. She wants to be an actress now. But if you asked her, every time I say, now get ready, because somebody might ask you, like, well, why do you want to be an actor? And she says, donuts, craft services. And I'm like, I think you have to have something more than that. Did you go into it for donuts?
No. We spent a lot of time as the script was being developed and Nick was writing and we were talking. And then right before we started shooting, I flew up to Portland to hang out with her and spend more time with her. And we spent your birthday together.
We spent my birthday together.
Yeah. And she actually had the benefit too of her being on set almost every day. Other than when she was on speaking engagements. She and her husband were there, so it actually helped me. It was encouraging. I think in some ways I was a little scared in the beginning, like, oh my God, she's going to be watching me, and then she's going to be judging me, and I don't know if I can do this. But she was actually this incredibly loving, supportive presence. And that sometimes she'd come and it would actually help me get into the scene. And I had the book to read over and over and over again. So
one thing Reese doesn't know, she tells that story about how Jean-Marc came up to her and said, you can't have newspaper in the pack. It was because I watched Reese walking in that newspaper pack, and I said, I can tell that the pack isn't weighed down. She should be actually carrying a heavy pack.
that was you?
That was me. That was me. And we could.
Are you the one who made me wear the shorts when it was like 30 degrees outside?
That was me.
Oh, yeah.
That was Bruna. Every day, Reese was like, I think it's a pants day. It's a sweatpants day. And then Bruna would be like, it's supposed to be July, damn it. You're wearing shorts. That's one thing. It was cold. And I will say there was so much that, when we talk about what Reese and I talked about in preparation for the role, one of the things I admire about Reese so deeply is, and I think probably any great actress does this, is that it has to begin with the self. You have to be brave enough to tell your truth in order to tell a story that matters to anyone else. That is the way to the universal narrative, is to be brave enough to tell your truth. And so many of the conversations that Reese and I had that were, I guess, in preparation for the film, weren't about the film at all. They weren't about my hike at all. They were about our lives, just talking about our childhoods, talking about relationships we've had, talking about ourselves as mothers, and everything from the mundane to the extraordinary. And I think that that's how you prepare to be revelatory in your work. And that's really what we did. It wasn't like, okay, you hook up the backpack here. There was some of that. But the more important work was just really opening ourselves up to each other.
Definitely the hardest movie I've ever done in my entire life, for many different reasons. The physicality was really difficult, but after the physicality was definitely the part I was dreading the most was the emotional part of it. The grief, the divorce, the sex scenes were the hardest thing for me to do, honestly. So hard. I remember writing Cheryl like the night before. I was like, I don't know how I'm supposed to have sex with two strangers tomorrow. Basically, going to shake their hand and like have sex with them in an alley. I've never had to do anything like that in my entire life. So Cheryl came to set that day. I was like, thanks for coming today.
I was like, I can't believe you've never done this.
But I had to tell myself, like, look, if she was brave enough to be completely open as an artist and talk about those things, I couldn't just do the parts of it that I was comfortable with. You know, I had to do all the parts of the movie. Parts that made me feel uncomfortable too, because it is about emotional honesty. And so I said to Cheryl, I was like, I can't believe I have to do this today. And she came up and she goes, I'm so sorry I was such a slut in the 90s.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm afraid that is something that is appearing in the British press.
Are you serious?
Well, right.
It says you have to be hypnotized before you have sex at all.
That's how the Brits do it. Is that what you guys?
No, that's not true. Certainly. I mean, I think it's a very personal film in a lot of ways. And I think I didn't really discover how personal it was until I was already halfway there. And I would send Cheryl emails, and while I was doing things that I mean, there's aspects of it that everybody knows that I've gone through, which are, you know, divorce and struggles with, you know, all kinds of things. But there's other things that people don't know about me. And it became very personal, you know, and it's about, for me, a lot of it is about finding yourself one step at a time, completely alone. And I think everyone who's ever made it this far in life, any age in life, realize that there's a day you wake up and you realize, I'm all alone. No one's riding in on a white horse and saving me. And the thing I thought was so extraordinary about the piece of material, about the book itself, and we hoped for the movie. I said to Bruna before we started, I said, if we can pull this off, it might be the first time in history, the first time a woman's in a movie and she ends the movie with no man, no money, no parents, no job, no opportunities, and it's a happy ending.
And not very good shoes either.
Question from Reese Witherspoon. I've seen that during the last few years there's been a kind of spirituality in your choices, and there is not in some ways, and this one, and even The Good Lie. Are you looking in a more interesting and way to what happens around you?
Certainly. And I think, you know, it's a great responsibility to have a platform where you bring movies to an audience globally. You know, I think you have to be mindful of what you want to say. I mean, certainly I do popcorn movies. I love those movies too. I have a great time doing them. And comedy, interestingly enough, has sometimes in my career, it's extraordinary to me how much it affects people. But a film like this is, in a way, to me, it's bigger than a movie, because of, you know, I saw it the other day with my mother, and Laura Dern, she saw it with her parents, and they all our mothers held hands as they watched the movie. It was really beautiful, but the conversation that I had with my mother and Laura's mother afterwards was probably one of the most important conversations of my life. Just about realizing what it means to be a mother or a daughter, knowing that our mothers were seen and understood. It was profound for them. And those aren't conversations that you have, you know, around the Thanksgiving table or at Christmas time because you're busy or the kids are running around. But to take the time to really contemplate who you are as people with people that you love, I think that's one of my favorite parts of this film is that people are sharing it with people they love.
I think we just have room for a few more questions. So after you, Miss, would you hand a microphone to the lady behind you and your sex? So 1, 2, 3. Okay, go ahead. Thank you.
Well, I've been a feminist all my life. I learned the word when I was like 5 or 6. And I do think it's kind of interesting to me that, you know, suddenly we're hearing so much more about feminism and I guess mainstream culture. And I think it's finally that there are so many powerful women, so many intelligent women, so many ambitious women who are just very tired of being on the sidelines. And so, you know, I didn't plan for this book to be this sort of like iconic, you know, story of a feminist. It was simply me writing my story. And I think that we didn't plan this as a film, but you hear Bruna and Reese talk about the reasons they founded their company. And, you know, it was all about, we're just not going to sit quietly anymore. And, you know, the work that women who came before us have done was, you know, got us so far, but it didn't get us all the way. And so now we're just stepping forth, I think, and people are noticing it. I'm writing about it within that context, but I think it's born out of just a very natural desire to take ourselves seriously and be seen as such. Yeah, I really wasn't afraid on my hike. I wasn't afraid of most of the men I met. I mean, I think it's not a surprise to most women that we are strong and that we can, you know, do things that other people tell us that we shouldn't or can't do.
I think that's an important part of the book as well. I mean, that I think that I thought was amazing in books is that we're taught, even as little girls, be afraid. Be afraid. Don't wear that skirt. You know, don't go out alone. Cross your legs. You know? And I think one of the really great things about the book and the film is that she forgives herself of her sexual experiences, you know, and I feel like so many times we're told as a woman to be ashamed of any experience that you have, and I think it's really a revelation to have a character, a woman in film going, what if I was supposed to sleep with all those guys? What if I learned something about it? What if that's okay? And I think it was extraordinary.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Oh, yeah. Wow, I forgot about that movie. Hi.
You remember everything?
Yeah, I do. Well, kind of. Really, I've had a few kids. Talking about physical life experience, probably having kids. 3 children was a physical experience, not to be forgotten. But yeah, I remember that movie. Yeah, it was a Disney movie where a boy and I walk across the Kalahari Desert. You're right, 3,000 miles. But we didn't. 3,000 miles. And I really carried a very light backpack with newspaper stuff.
Hilarious.
Thank you. Go ahead, ma'am.
I wouldn't say it was difficult. It was painful for me to contemplate my mother's death being reenacted. And it was striking that Jean-Marc chose to do it so accurately. What I wrote in the book about how my mother dies and how I found out she was dead and all of those details are seared into my memory, into my mind, and I wrote about them very honestly in the book. And then Jean-Marc and Reese and the actors and Laura recreated that. And so I always cry at that scene. It was really important to me that Laura understand who my mother was, that she wasn't, she was this incredibly gloriously good mother. I think we seldom get to see that, right? When do you get to see a good mom who's not idealized, who's imperfect, who's human? And I wanted Laura to to know that about my mom. She and I spent quite a lot of time talking about both of our mothers and ourselves as mothers, and she brought all of that into the role. So it wasn't hard. It was. I would say that the word I feel is just so lucky. I think that she and my mother share this enormous optimism. You know, a reporter recently called Laura Dern sunshine in human form. And I think that that's very accurate. My mother was that too. When I was a teenager, that annoyed the shit out of me. But now I think it's one of the greatest gifts of my life.
Thank you all so much. I just want to say again, congratulations on a wonderful piece of work from all of you. And thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for your time. I know you have to be rushed off, but great success with the film. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.